Hello, I am Christopher Shuck here, and I'm doing a YouTube presentation for my Introduction to Homicide class for Intimate Partner Homicides. Part of what I have to do here is show my student ID. This is me for Seminole State. So part of this presentation is to go over some of the theories that are outlined in Chapter 6 of our class, which explain intimate partner violence. But, to get to some of these theories, we have to look at some of the underlying symptoms of intimate partner violence. I know that according to the CDC website, they've listed about 1 in 5 women and about 1 in 7 men are reported to experience severe physical violence from intimate partners in their lifetime, and about 1 in 5 women and 1 in 12 men have experienced sexual violence from an intimate partner. The CDC also further states that 10% of women and 2% of men report having been stalked by an intimate partner. These are fairly important numbers because, they show nationally what, the potential for the intimate partner violence can occur on either side, which is also addressed in intimate partner homicide and violence, and it's also addressed with one of the theories, which I'll touch base here shortly. So with that being said, that, obviously either a woman or a man can be a victim of intimate partner homicide. Typically, intimate partner homicides are one victim, one perpetrator offenses that have occurred. So there's typically the victim, which is either the man or the woman or the significant other of the relationship, and the perpetrator is the other half of the relationship. I know age is a factor in intimate partner homicides. Men that are usually 16 years older and women that are 10 years older have a tendency to be more, susceptible to committing these offenses. Obviously, excessive alcohol use and drug abuse are a huge factor. In my personal experience in working in the sheriff's office as well, seeing that, drugs and alcohol kind of run hand in hand when it comes especially to violence and negative reactions to situations, because alcohol and drugs inhibit the ability to think logically, slow the process of an ability for a person to not act upon impulse, and basically increases the likelihood of violent behavior due to the not being able to control these impulses and problems that are going inside, and which alcohol and drugs are usually inhibitors of that. Another key factor is there's a history of domestic violence that's been notated by the males in previous history of it. In particular, strangulation. Strangulation is oftentimes, if there's repeated issues of strangulation, that is going to potentially lead from intimate partner violence to intimate partner homicide. I know personally in my experience in seeing a lot of these offenders that I've dealt with out here as a law enforcement officer, is oftentimes we deal with people that are repeat offenders, and realistically the really violent ones that really escalate really quick have had a previous history documented history. I'm sure there's more history than that outside of what we had on scene of strangulation, felony strangulation arrests. And that's brings me to there's 23 states in the United States that have created strangulation as an enhancement to the offense of domestic violence, which is good. It takes it from a misdemeanor offense to a felony offense, which carries, goes from carrying a 1-year jail time with a minimal fine to potentially imprisonment in a state penitentiary or state probation. There are, obviously those are a huge factor. And there are also many different things that are used in an intimate partner homicide, such as the weapons or method of the offense committing the homicide. First and foremost in America is obviously the first things ever used is firearms. They're easy. It's very less personal. It's easier to pull a trigger than it is to, physically injure somebody with an edged weapon or something of that nature, or your bare hands. Typically, when those items come into play, it's usually very much a crime of passion also as well. There's a lot more heated emotion involved. And of course, next after firearms is edged weapons, which is like a very personal action, which oftentimes shows a very elevated impact of rage, and which I'll discuss here in just a minute. That's one of the things that's a key factor in the offense. And then there's strangulation, which I had already said strangulation is a key indicator that potentially it could escalate to higher. Then there's the blunt objects, and then there's fists, and then miscellaneous other weapons. I'm sure whatever they can grab that's around them at the time the situation is occurring. Men who commit intimate personal harm, or homicide, I'm sorry, feel they oftentimes do so out of fear of infidelity, or there's a concern of separation, and usually unwanted separation, jealousy, and then of course, as I said, rage. Women oftentimes typically will do it as a self-defense kind of mechanism if they're stuck in a relationship involving domestic violence. That's not always the case, but that's one of the defenses that are used oftentimes. I've dealt with experiencing response to calls. I remember early on in my career, I actually responded to a call to check on the well-being of a female who was involved with a former law enforcement officer. Actually, it was a current medic, and she was actually a probation officer. When we got on the scene, come to find out, she was leaving him. He found out he had then committed the homicide with her, and then later on, shortly before we actually made contact later that morning, he'd done it earlier that night, later that morning, he committed self-harm. And it's a prime example of the intimate partner homicide. I mean, he was very jealous, very concerned, very worried. She was talking to coworkers about ending the relationship, and she did, or she was going to, and she had an exit plan, was getting ready to leave him, and he knew it, and he took it to the next step. So I'm going to go ahead and then address the theories. So obviously, there's the feminine aspect of it. That oftentimes throughout history, there's the patriarchal environment where the man is the breadwinner, the head of the household, the one that says it all. And I noticed early on in my career, 20-something years ago, oftentimes women didn't want the husband to be arrested because of concern of money, bills, lifestyle, and they relied on their significant other because they didn't have as an active role in supporting the household outside of physically caring for the household. Financially, they didn't have a very big control of, so they oftentimes didn't want anything to happen to them. So now that we see gender equality, we see that women are more active in the work field today. They're a lot more in prestigious positions. They make far better money than they used to. So they're less reliant on the other half to actually continue to be in a relationship on that solely. They can actually separate themselves from the relationship. So that has a huge thing, big thing to do with it. There's the social learning theory, which these are people that have grown up in childhood abuse and have witnessed abuse of their parents, and it's become an acceptable practice, basically. They grew up in it, they saw it every day, and now is a practice that is okay to do because that's what they know. So they continue to perpetuate the offense, and just like sex offenders and everything, anybody that's of any kind of violent offenses in the history, there's a repetitive pattern that has to be broken. So hopefully early intervention can help out people with that, but that's one of the theories. Then there's the economic strain theory. Economy has a huge effect on anybody, whether it's loss of money, loss of job. It increases stress, it increases rage, it increases conflict, and then sometimes it typically it can lead to substance and alcohol abuse, which in turn goes back to the contributing factors of things that can assist in or increase the ability of it to occur. So these are many just different things that I've covered here. There are many more that are covered, but these are just some of the basic facts for this course. I hope everybody got some good information from this. 10 minutes goes by quick. I appreciate your time. Thank you and goodbye.